Hey, what's up guys? Back again with another video in the C++ series. I'm back again with another video here, and we're going to be doing something a little different than we usually do. We're going to be starting what's called I'm going to call it a practice session, I guess you could call it, where we're going to be going over this little example problem I made up, and we're going to be working through it to make a program to complete what it's asking for, basically. So the basic idea behind this is that after you watch the videos, you can learn the concepts behind C++, and then you can come here to these practice videos and give it a try making some programs that use those concepts so that you can practice the concepts, get them ingrained in your brain, and yeah, get some good practice. So what I'm going to do here is basically explain this problem that I made up, and then I'm going to ask you to pause the video and then you could try it out. And also, I'm not going to read through the whole thing exactly, so what I'm going to do is leave the link for this in the description below so you can check it out, and then you could pause the video, open this up, and then give it a try, basically. And then after that, once you're done pausing the video, you can resume the video and watch how I code it out so you can see how it could be done. Alright, so hopefully that makes sense, and let's get started here. So the first thing here is the compound interest formula. That's what I found, or I learned this in algebra this year, and actually I learned this in high school too, but I learned this in college algebra. You have this formula here called the compound interest formula, and what you can do basically with it is basically get the final amount on a balance after a certain amount of interest. So what you can do is provide the principal amount, which is the initial amount of money. Then you could provide the interest rate, which is the amount of interest that will be generated on that amount of money. Then you have the time, so which is going to be the number of years that you're going to be doing the interest on this amount of money. And then you have the number of times interest is compounded per unit t. So for example, you have a quarterly interest, so that would be 4 times a year. So the n variable here would be 4. Okay, so 4 times a year. If you have annual, that would be 1 time a year. If you have semi-annual, that would be, I think, 2 times a year. Stuff like that. So hopefully that makes sense. But what you can do basically is find the final amount by using this formula here, or you can do the opposite direction by providing the final amount, provide the interest rate, the time, and the number of times compounded, and then you could find the principal amount. So you can basically find for the person what amount of money they will need to start with to get to this amount of money in a certain amount of time with a certain interest rate. Alright, so that hopefully makes sense, but if you have any questions about this, or if you don't quite understand my explanation, then you could look this up. Just search the compound interest formula, and then you could do some further research on how the formula works. So what we're going to be doing is making a formula, or a program based on this formula, obviously, and then it needs to have 2 main functionalities, which are basically the functionalities that I just explained, which is finding the final amount and then finding the principal amount. Those are the 2 different things we're going to be doing. And then, so we have these 3 methods here, or functions here, that we need to create for our program. So we have calculate final amount, which is going to be taking a principal amount, the starting balance, interest rate, time in years, and then the number of times to be compounded per unit of time. So for example, quarterly, like I said, would be 4 times a year. And then what we're going to do is return the final amount as a double for this function here. Okay, so that should be pretty simple. And then we have calculate principal amount, so it takes a final amount, interest rate, time, and number of times to be compounded per unit of time, and then it's going to return the starting balance for the account as a double. So you know how much money you need to start with to get to this final amount here, right? And then you have one more function here we're going to be making, and so it's going to take a balance amount, a interest rate, time, and number of times to be compounded per unit, and finally a choice integer to know which values to ask for. So I'll be explaining that further, don't worry. But basically what this is going to do is it's going to be a function that asks the user for all of the values. So we need to ask the user in the console to get these values that we're going to be plugging into these 2 calculate functions here. So this is what that function is going to do. It's going to ask for those values. And then the last parameter for this function here is going to be 1 or 2. So 1 or 2 is going to be how you distinguish whether you want to ask for the final amount or the principal amount from the user, because you have to know which one to get from the user, so you know which calculation to do, right? So don't worry, we'll be working through that as well. But again, I'll leave the link for this in the description below so you can check it out and read it word for word. And yeah, so we'll also have a main function, obviously, because every program needs a main function. And that main function will display a menu to the user so they can choose what they want to do. So they could, like right here, here's the menu I made. So you could find the compound interest, which is the final amount, or you could find the principal amount, and that's going to be to find the starting balance. Otherwise, you can just exit the program by pressing 0. Okay. So that's what that's going to do, and basically after they choose their option in the menu, what it's going to do is basically make sure they chose one of the menu options, and if they didn't, then you're just going to ask the user again for an option. So like for example, if they chose 3, that's not obviously on the menu, so we're just going to ask them again to choose a menu option until they choose a correct option, 1, 2, or 0. And then after they choose one of those options, what we want to do is basically call upon the prompt values function so that they can get the values to run the calculation on. So, and by the way, the values that we're going to be passing into this prompt values function are going to be reference values, because we're going to be getting these values in the prompt values function. So we need to pass these back as reference values because we can't return more than one value. So that's the easy way to do that. Again, I'll be showing you how that works. But yeah, of course, if they choose 0, then you just exit the program, however you want to do that. And then, yeah, that's about it. And then basically whenever you're done getting the calculation, you're going to report the calculation to the user, let them know what the actual value is of the calculation. And then you're going to repeat the process again, meaning show the menu again, so that they can either exit the program or do another calculation, basically, okay? So I know that that probably wasn't very good of an explanation, but go ahead and pause the video now, open this up in the description below, and then you could read this for yourself and get started with the challenge to see if you can do it, okay? Alright, so hopefully you're done now, hopefully you were able to finish it, but let's get started and try doing this for ourselves. So we're going to put this on our drive here. We're going to call this the compound, actually we'll do this, practice compound interest program. Alright, there we go. So we're going to make that new program right there. And let's get started. Alright, so I think the easiest starting point for this program would be to start the menu. So just display the menu to the user so that they can choose an option. So let's do that to start off with. So we need to make a menu here, and the easiest way to work with menus, if you're going to be repeating the menu over and over and over until they exit, the easiest way to do that would be usually to do a do while loop, because basically with a do while loop, as you know, we're going to first display, we're going to loop once, right? You have to loop once with the do while loop, and then you're going to check the condition. So basically we're going to loop once, and that's going to display the menu, and then the condition will be loop again if they do not choose 0. But if they do choose 0, obviously do not loop, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. So first we just need to display the menu, so we're going to do cout, and first we'll just say something like welcome. Oh yeah, we need to use add the using namespace std. There we go. So we'll say welcome, choose an option below, so the user can choose an option from the menu. And then we'll add some of these, just some lines right there to divide it. And now we'll add the first menu option, which is going to be to find the compound interest or the final amount, whatever you want to call it. So we'll put a 1 so they know to type 1 into the input once we ask for their choice. So we'll just say find compound interest. There we go. And then we'll do another one for 2. And we'll say find principal amount, which is again going to be the starting amount for the account. And then finally we'll have the exit option, so they can exit the program if they want to. If they decide they don't want to, do any more calculations or something like that. Exit program. Okay. So once they choose that, let's just copy this divider right here. Once it's done displaying that, So let's just put the divider here. And then after that, we need to ask for their choice. So we'll do cin choice, but we need a choice variable, obviously. So we'll put this outside of the loop. So into choice, and we're going to get the choice 1, 2, or 0. And basically now that after we get the choice, what we need to do is process what they entered. So we need to validate it, basically. So we'll just do this one by one. So if they choose 1, that means that they want to find the compound interest. Oops, choice 1, not choose 1. There we go. So we'll just leave that empty for now, and then we'll do else if choice is equal to 2. That means they want to find the principal amount. And then now we need to process it. So basically if they choose 0, we want to exit the program. But we're already going to have this condition down here anyway, saying something like while choice is not equal to 0. That means they want to loop again. So since we already have this down here, we don't need to have it right here because there's no point in doing that. So we can do something like else if I can't type, choice is not equal to 0, meaning it's not 1, it's not 2, it's not 0, so that means that they chose something other than 1, 2, or 0. So that means that we need to ask them again for their input, basically. So we can just, in this case, do cout invalid choice, choose again, and nothing else. Because if we just leave this by itself, basically it's just going to get to the end of the loop, and it's just going to loop again for us. Easy peasy, right? And so now let's do these here. So if we choose 1, what we want to do is call upon the, let's pull up the instructions real quick. So we need to have this prompt to values function here, so let's go ahead and work on that, because the next thing to do would be to ask the user for the values that they want to enter, basically. So let's call this, let's think here, let's do void prompt values, and we'll do, so we need to take some values, some reference values here. So we're going to need a balance amount, so that could either be the starting balance or the final amount for, you know, depending on which option they choose here. So we'll just call this, let's call it double, and then we need to put an ampersand to make it a reference value, and then balance like that. And then the next thing we need is going to be the interest rate, so that would be as a percentage, or a decimal, I guess. Yeah, a decimal. So we'll do double, since it's a decimal, and we'll say interest, like that. And then we'll have another one for the compound amount. So we'll call this integer, let's call this just compound, I guess. And that should be it. So balance, interest, compound amount, and then we're also gonna need the choice, so either 1 or 2. So we need to have that, so we know which value to ask for. So int choice. Sorry if you heard my speaker. Just ignore that. And yeah, so this one's not going to be a reference value because we don't need to store the choice. We're just going to be passing in the choice. And then depending on the choice, so if choice is equal to 1, we want to make this since we're finding the compound interest for choice 1, this is going to be the starting balance. So we want to do cout enter a starting balance, like that. Enter a starting balance, and then cin balance. So once they enter the starting balance, it's just going to be directly placed into this reference variable, and then it'll be saved inside of here. So we actually need to make these reference variables here. So we're just going to make them right here. So we'll call this double balance, double interest, int compound, and I think that's it. Hopefully I'm not forgetting anything. Oh yeah, we need the years, amount of years, so don't forget that. So time, we'll just call it, and make this a reference variable because we need to pass it back into these values here. So int time, okay, and then so now we could go down here and do prompt to values and just pass in these values that we just created. So balance, interest, time, compound, and then finally we also do, if you want to see what values you need to type in, you could do Control P and then the parameters pop up. So that's kind of helpful sometimes. So we need the choice value, obviously, so we need to pass in, since this is for choice equal to 1, we just pass in 1 just like that. So that's how that works. And then this is complete now. So basically now we just need to finish our prompt to values function here. So we're going to ask for a starting balance. So now we also need to ask for a interest rate, enter an interest rate. Got to be correct grammar, of course. So cin interest, and then cout enter a time, we'll say years, something like that. Okay, cin time, cout enter a compound amount per year, and cin compound. And then that should be it, right? So we just got these 4 values: balance, interest, time, and compound. And then once we ask for these values, they're going to be placed into these variables here, which again are going to be placed into these variables here, which we can then use to call upon the calculate function and then pass in these values into the calculate function. But we don't have that yet, obviously, right? So we can also just copy this here and then place it here and then change this to 2. Okay. So now that should be it for the prompt to values function. Oh yeah, we also need else if for choice 2, obviously. Don't forget that. And so the only difference between that one and this one is just going to be changing this to enter a final balance. Basically, that's the only difference pretty much. And then after that, we want to, now we can make our calculate functions here. So if we go back to our instructions here, we need 2 calculate functions. We need one for the final amount. So basically, we're going to be using this formula here to find the A, the final amount. And then the other one is going to be for calculate principal amount, which is going to be giving A to find P, and then also using these other values here, okay? So that's how that's going to work. And I'll just put this formula at the bottom left of the screen so you can see it as I'm working through it. So we're going to make the first one first. So calculate final, this is going to be returning a double. So calculate final amount. And we need some values here. So we're going to be passing in a double of principal amount, which is also just going to be the starting amount. Then we need a double for the interest rate. Then we need a integer for the time, and then integer for the compound. There we go. Open that up. And so now we need to actually do the calculation, obviously. So double result is equal to, and now inside of here we need to do our calculation. So that first thing we need is going to be multiplying the principal amount, the starting amount, times the other side. So 1 plus r over n times nt to the power of nt. So we'll just put this in parentheses here, and then do principal amount times, inside parentheses, 1 plus, and then parentheses again. Order of operations is your best friend, so make sure you use lots of parentheses so the program knows which calculations to do first. But anyway, so now we need to do r over n. So r is going to be our interest rate, so we could just do interest rate divided by n, which is going to be the amount of times you want to compound. So compound. So that's going to be principal amount times 1 plus interest rate over compound, and then that we need to have that to the power of nt. So that would be right here. So we just need to grab this, and then we need to call upon the power function, so POW. But also we made a mistake here. The power, let's just cut this out real quick like that. Wait, what did I just do? Oh, I did a Control Z instead of Control X, by the way. By mistake. So I just cut that, and then we can get rid of this, and then so it was 1 plus interest rate divided by compound. So we're just going to copy all of this, so 1 plus interest rate over compound, and then we're going to make the power of that. So POW, and then Control P to see what we need to pass in. You get the 2 things. So first we need the thing that we're going to have on the bottom, the base, I guess, I think you could call it. And then after that, so you're going to be passing in the thing that you're going to be the power itself. So that would be n times t, so the compound amount times the time. So that would be time times compound, basically. And let's just put this in parentheses just to be certain. You don't actually need to, I'm sure, but there we go. So I put a semicolon on the end, so that should be it. So I know this is a really long math statement here, a little equation that we just translated. So if we translated this correctly into computer code, this should be the principal amount times 1 plus n over t to the power of nt. So that should work. So we're going to do return result. Actually, we could just copy this right here, Control X, and then put this just like that, and then that'll save us a whole line of code. And so that should work. Let's just hope that works. And now we'll do the other one. So we need the calculate starting amount. Let's go back to our instructions here. Yeah, calculate principal amount. Okay, so we'll just copy that name. Here we go, calculate principal amount. And we're going to be passing in double final amount, double interest rate, int time, and then int compound. Okay, so the only difference, of course, is just going to be the name here, so final amount instead of principal amount. Okay, so we're going to be providing A to get P, basically, is what we're doing from the formula. So let's open this up here. We'll do return, and so to do this, what we need to do this time is do A divided by 1 plus n over t to the power of nt, or r over t. I mean, you get what I'm saying. So we'll do A, so that would be final amount divided by, power, and then inside the power we're just going to again do 1 plus, and then n over t, which is going to be interest rate, or r over t, so interest rate, or r over n, sorry, interest rate over compound, so divided by compound, just like that. and then we need to do the power itself, so n times t. So that would be right here. So that would be n times t, so compound times time, just like that. So that should do the same thing for us, except that it's finding p instead of a, okay? So let's just hope that works. So now let's go down here. And so now that we've called the prompt values function and we pass these values from the console to these variables here as a reference, we can then do calculate final amount and just pass in balance, pass in interest, pass in time, and pass in compound. And that should do the calculation for us, but we need to store this calculation in a variable because this of course returns a double. So we're going to make a variable here called double result is equal to calculate final amount. Same thing for this, we'll do double result is equal to prompt value. Oh wait, not that. There we go. Let's do right here, double result is equal to calculate, if I can type it correctly, calculate principal amount. So we're going to be passing in balance, passing in interest rate, passing in time, and passing in compound. There we go. So now that we've done our calculations, we could just go below that and just report the calculations like I said. So let's make an inline here. So just make a new line for some space, and we'll do cout, make some dividers here. Say cout results inline final, or right, not final, it would be principal value. And we put a $sign, and then after the $sign, we could put our results here. So there we go. So I should add that for us. So let's just copy this, go back up to here, and that would be, instead of the principal value, we'll have the final compounded value, however you want to name that, and that should be the exact same thing. Okay, so this should be it. So let's test out our program now to see if it works. Okay, so now we have our menu here. So it says find the compound interest, or find the principal amount, or exit the program, if I can speak correctly. So let's try doing exit first, so 0, and then the program exits pretty good. So let's run this again. So let's find the compound interest, so 1, and we're going to have a starting balance, so we'll do 500, and we'll need an interest rate, so that we'll do an interest rate of 5%, so 0.05, and then we'll have a time, so we'll do 5 years. And then the compound amount per year, we'll do it quarterly, so 4 times a year. So the final compounded value is going to be 641.019, and I'm pretty sure that's correct. That sounds about correct because it's not too big, but it looks good anyway. So you can check that if you want to, but it looks correct to me. So again, we can exit the program if you want to. So that's good. That still works. So basically, we know it's able to loop also, other than being able to find the first calculation here. It's able to loop the menu over and over and over until you exit, which is good. So yeah, let's do the principal amount now. So we'll enter the final balance. So we'll do something like 641, which was close to what we just saw a second ago. And then we'll have an interest rate of 0.05, and then we'll have a time of 5 years and 4 years, and then we get about 500, which is exactly what we just did but backwards. So we provided the first time 500 and we got about 641. So we know it works basically because you can do it either way and it gets the same value basically. Anyway, so let's try exiting again, or actually we'll just do 1 again. We'll do 500, we'll do 0.05, 5 years, 4 times a year, and boom, we get exactly what we got before. And then we get exit finally. Boom. So this program works exactly how we wanted it to work. So hopefully you enjoyed this quick episode on just how to make this program. If you have any ideas for a future program that you want to see me make, I can do that for you. Just provide any suggestions in the comment section below, or you can join our Discord server and leave a suggestion in the suggestions channel for me if you want to see anything special, okay? And yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed this, like I said. So if you have any questions about what I showed you today, you can ask in the comment section below, or you can join the Discord server and ask questions there. So make sure you do that. You can also get some friends there if you don't have any. You can also hang out with us, talk to us. Whatever you want to do, just join our Discord server. It's pretty cool. Link in the description for you. And then also, all of the code for today's episode will be in the description below, so you can see the challenge code for yourselves and save it if you need to. So yeah, I'll just leave that for you. And that's about it. So if you like this video, leave a like. If you want to see more, subscribe, and peace.